Welcome to episode 12 of Daditude. We are cruising. This is so much fun. I'm here with the great. I call him beautiful every time. I'm not going to do that to you, Jericho. I'm going to call you gorgeous this time.
All right, even better. There was I remember a wrestler named Gorgeous George.
Ooh,
so I'll be Gorgeous Jericho. Thank you.
There you go. I do like how your sweater matches the brick wall behind you.
This isn't by accident.
Right. Okay. It's a little bit like a spy. You go up against the wall and just kind of walk sideways so the bad guys can't see it.
None of this is by accident, Gabe. None of it.
Would you play James Bond if asked in the next 007?
I don't know. Because I don't like when they do shit like that. Like James Bond.
Do shit like what?
When they make people a different color than they're supposed to be. James Bond is a character. He's a white British secret agent.
That's true.
So I don't know. I wouldn't want to do that. But, if they're paying me like they pay Daniel Craig, I do have a family to think about. This would to change. Yeah, I'd have to do it, but
I would do it. I don't like either when they race swap. I think it's stupid, but I would take the money and I would demand that the movie be set in Mazatlan, one of my favorite cities in Mexico. So there you go.
Yeah, that would be a tough one, but I have an opportunity to change my family's life for generations to come, so I have to. It's my duty.
What would the plot of your Bond movie be? Because I know what the plot of mine would be.
I would make the plot of mine. It's a climate change, like some head of a big corporation is all about climate change and saving the planet and shit, but he's really destroying the planet, and we'd have some final face off, in some high rooftop somewhere. But yeah, it would be something like that, some issue today that pisses me off, and I would be taking him down.
Very cool. Mine would be set in Mazatlan, Mexico. The backdrop is the Miss Latina Universe pageant, and a big, ugly, blue-haired feminist is trying to sabotage the bikini competition. Yeah, and I have to save hundreds of gorgeous Latinas.
Oh, you poor thing.
When they are scantily clad in tiny bikinis, I have to save them all from a big, fat, ugly feminist.
There'd definitely be a scene where like some kind of boat is sinking, the building's collapsing. Girls, over here, this way, and you'd have to grab each of them by their waist,
right?
And put them, on the safety raft, the rescue boat
in the head as you.
Come on, let's go. Let's get out of here. Gabe, if you stop motorboating them, we can save them quicker. No, let's go.
Right,
yeah,
right.
You're just doing your part, and I thank you for that, man.
Well, if they criticized how fast I was saving these women, I would say, do you want it done right or do you want it done fast? That's what I would say.
No, we want it done right. I know it, girls. Come on.
That's right. That's right. So I would save the Latina Miss Universe bikini pageant in Mazatlan, Mexico.
Very noble of you, man.
That's
Very
right.
noble. Go ahead and pat yourself on the back, man. That's great.
That's right. That's two hands patting on the back.
That's right. That's two hands. Come on, girls. Let's get out of here.
And then you'd have that little James. What would the quip be when you finally eliminate the final bad guy, the big fat feminist? He'd always have the one-liner afterwards.
Yeah. It'd be
something about whaling.
climate changed. That's what
The climate changed. There you go.
I'd throw him off the fucking building. Yeah, definitely be. I like those, the diehard, the bad guy falling off of a tall building.
Right.
I like that. So yeah, I'm
Right.
gonna take him on a ride off the side of that building.
James Bond, he's a good example of masculinity and excellence, and he's a handsome guy. He's a stoic guy. He can fight. He's a good example for little boys to look up to how to be a macho man. And that brings us to today's topic. We talk about the top down. We're fathers, down to the wife, down to the kids. But let's go back into our origin stories, Jericho. What was it like when we were little boys and we were looking up to the men in our lives? Give me some good moments, some good examples you saw. Father, coach, uncle, whatever. What was a manly thing that said, oh, that's the standard. I could be a man like that? Because I know a few in my head. And tell me one that comes to mind right away when I ask you, what were the great examples of fatherly masculinity that you saw when you were little?
Definitely my dad. I have memories of him. I remember watching him interact with friends of his, and that teaching me how men are supposed to interact with each other. It was a handshake. It was some joking, some ribbing. They're always talking shit to each other.
Right.
And him helping some of his buddies who had passed that he served in the army with, and helping their wives. I remember many times going over to Miss So-and-so's house and cutting her weeds, trimming her tree. One of his army buddies, his last name was Wilson, and the lady, I always called her Miss Wilson. I didn't even know her first name. And she lived in a town called Watsonville. And in the 89 earthquake, Watsonville, Hollister, those and a bunch of other towns are right on that fault line. So they really got it bad. And I remember going to her house, and it looked like she had a sliding glass door in her house, and you open the sliding glass door, and it looked like a giant picked her house up and just shook it. All of her dishes were on the floor. All of her furniture was turned over. You're walking on top of plates and furniture. It was terrible. And I remember my dad, giving her a hug, and he just grabbed a big, those big wide aluminum shovels, and we just got to work, clearing her place out and fixing it up for her, and kind of trying to, restore and salvage what could be salvaged. And she was just crying. She was so heartbroken. And my dad was just like, don't take care of it. We'll take care of it. So there are many different facets of your dad that you see. I remember my dad and my mom were always, my dad was always chasing her around or hugging her. We come into the kitchen and they're kissing, which is disgusting when you're a kid, but it's giving you information subliminally. You're storing all this stuff in your who I'm going to be account. And you see just the different sides of him. You see the tough side. I saw my dad threaten to kick a guy's ass because he kicked his dog in front of us. My dad said, if you kick that dog again, you're going to be on the ground. I'm going to be kicking your ass. And we ended up taking the dog home. It became our dog. I've seen my dad. I remember going down a hill and the brakes went out. We're in a 64 Chevy pickup.
Oh my God.
Going down a steep hill, no brakes. I remember my dad hitting the brakes and stuff. And he was almost humming to himself, like, he's looking at the traffic. And we're barreling down this hill. And we're about to go. It was like, we're going into 2 lanes of traffic, one going one way, one going the other. And he's downshifting and shit. And we fucking get to the bottom of this hill and we just take the turn. Luckily, there were no cars coming. It was like we take the turn. He puts it back in gear. Like he wasn't even tripping. He didn't even like get scared. And who knows? It could have been like a duck, on the surface, it's calm, but underneath, those little feet are going. I don't know. Inside, he could have been having a heart attack, but on the outside, man, he was chilling. So I just remember my dad.
And he taught you right there emotional regulation. You can have any feeling under the water, like the duck paddling. Outwardly, I can't crack in front of my women and kids because they need me, because they're cracking and they need me to hang on to.
Yeah, he didn't say a word. He didn't say anything. And I remember it was my dad driving. I was sitting in the middle. My Uncle Charlie was on the right. And my Uncle Charlie just kind of grabbed, the window was cracked. And so he kind of grabbed the door jamb when we took the turn, and it was nothing. He didn't even trip. And one that really
did you in the moment, did you feel terrified in the moment, or did
I was shitting my pants? I was like 8 years old. I was just
now. Can you imagine your dad was like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" If your dad did that, how much worse would it be for you?
Yeah, you were. Oh my God, we're all screwed. We're gonna die. But I remember looking at him, and he was like, my dad would always do it. He would hum songs to himself when he was working and stuff. And so I swear I can remember him doing that. He was so chill. But probably the best story of my dad, it was my 8th birthday party, and my mom was in there. We're doing cake and presents and all this shit. My dad was outside working on a car. And my dad comes in from the outside. He was in the den. He comes through the outside and he limps through the party and he's saying hi. You know, some of the parents are, hey, how you doing? And he's limping. I'm like, oh man, what happened to dad? So my mom leaves, you know, great wife she is. She notices that, leaves the room, goes with him. And my mom's a nurse. So she's in there with my dad. So fast forward to the end of the party. I didn't see my dad after that. My mom comes back out and I was like, what happened? So I go in the room. My dad's leg from the knee down is all bandaged up. A transmission fell out of the car and landed on his leg. Dude, big old gash in his leg and shit. Because I saw when she took the bandages off, he didn't say shit. He just went through. He just limped through the party because I was the closest door to the outside. I'm sure he would have went around to another door and not even bothered, and not even saw us at all if he could. But he went through there and it didn't say shit. You couldn't even see it on his face. He was just limping. I thought, was he stubbed his toe or some shit? Turns out, I mean, this is like 7-8 inch fucking gash in his leg. Like it was bad. Transmissions are heavy as shit.
Right.
And
he didn't break his leg. Jeez.
Yeah, the at the end of the transmission, it's like this little bar that comes out and it has like ridges on it, and that goes into the transmission. It turns gears.
So I think that fell up.
Yeah, it went down and then like just dug into his leg, but he didn't say shit. And that always stuck with me. That taught me that if you can, you know, I'm sure if it was like, you know, something was sticking out of his eye, he probably would have been a little more animated. But if you can, keep that shit to yourself. You know, he didn't want to ruin my party. He didn't want to scare us, number one. He didn't want to ruin our party, and he could handle it. So he did. You know, and my mom went in there, patched him up. Who knows? She was probably like, oh my God, let's go to the hospital. He's probably like, nah, got the birthday party, chill out, the kids. He was really cool about that shit. So I've mentioned before, my dad wasn't the like, well, you know, let's go toss the ball in the front yard, son. He wasn't very tender, affectionate dad like that, but he still taught me a lot of shit, man. He really did.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, he was a great man. And when we go on vacation, I remember going to Disney World on vacation. We were up at 5:30. I was like, Dad, we're on vacation. We're up at 5:30 in the morning, every morning at Disney World. So that's the kind of dude he was, man.
Yeah, well, you got to take that. You got to take the good with the bad like that, where he's waking you up at 5:30 at the Magic Kingdom. You know, who's ready for pancakes? Like, oh my gosh, 5:30. Fucking Donald Duck's not even up yet, Dad.
Yeah, we stayed at this resort that was owned
by. Down in there. I'm trying to sleep over here. Like Mickey Mouse is all mad.
Oh, I'm not up yet, kids. Oh, so. It was run by the Department of Defense. So it was a place where veterans could go with their family. The Department of Defense basically bought a resort next to Disney World. And we were in line outside of the dining room before they were even ready. Like some of the people were still sitting around eating their breakfast. They're still putting the dishes out and shit. And we're there first in line, 6 in the morning or 5:55. They opened at 6 and we're ready to go. My dad, he was one of a kind, man. They don't make them like that anymore.
Gosh, you're here early, huh?
Crazy, man.
Goofy's like, what the hell are you doing here so early? Sun's not even up yet, you bastard.
I'm still hungover.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, man.
You know what voice I wish I could do? I can make the noise, but I can't speak. But my uncle, my great uncle Si, my grandpa's, he's like my grandpa's half brother. He could speak in that voice. I can make the noise, but I can't say anything. As soon as I start to enunciate letters, it falls away. So I've always wanted to be able to do the Daffy Duck or Donald Duck voice. So
I think Donald Duck is every man inside because he would get mad over nothing and dude just be like jumping up and down, screaming
like this.
Dude, I always related to.
I always loved him. I thought he was a great character. Your dad driving with no brakes reminds me of a story myself, but then I want to talk about the male examples of my life. Driving my son to batting practice about 10 years ago, and I'm a pretty good driver. And my neighbor on the right, I'm driving down the street, and I always go under 25 in the neighborhood because there are kids there. I go like 20. Right. I go very slow in the neighborhood. I can't stand when I yell at people that go fast in the neighborhood. So slow the fuck down when people drive by fast.
Do the same thing.
Yeah, assholes. You know who you are in your black Prius? I've seen you many times, jerk.
Piece of shit.
Anyway, a Prius, by the way. Holy shit, what a wimp. I'm driving my son to batting practice with my wife and daughter. So my son's, 11, my daughter's 13. My wife's in the front seat. My neighbor on the right side of the street, we're halfway down the block, opens his door, has a big, like, golden retriever kind of dog. And he doesn't have the dog on a leash. I'm driving in front of his house. Across the street, like 2 houses down, someone is walking their dog. What do dogs do when they see another dog sometimes? They run right at him.
Mm-hmm.
This dog runs right in front of my car. Thank God I drive slow. I see a tan bolt of lightning. That's this dog just dart in front of this car. I hit the brake and swerve. We hit the dog anyway. But I hit the brake and swerved properly, so I didn't run the dog over. I knocked the dog down. Not my fault. This isn't my fault. My wife and daughter start screaming and sobbing, and my son is like, like, what do we do, Dad? And in my head, I'm like, I got to be cool. Look at them. They're melting. I got to be cool. I'm expecting to come out of my car and see guts everywhere. I don't know what just happened. Turned out the dog just got some scratches on his feet. But in my head, I'm like, do I have to get out of the car and like, do I have to put this dog down? Like, is it suffering with guts everywhere?
Like pull your sidearm.
Like, do I have to twist this dog's neck and go, I'm sorry? And like, what do I have to do? Because this dog might be all over the road. I don't know what's going on. But I just turned to my wife and my daughter said, don't look. Don't look. I'll get out. Don't look at the Daddy. Like my wife and daughter just screaming and crying. I'm like, don't look. Don't look. I'll go see. I get out. The dog's like getting up. He ended up scratching the bottom of his feet, the dog, like on the pavement when he got knocked. That was it. He got some scuffs on his paws. But I remember I knew consciously I had to just be completely cool.
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad. Nobody wants to hit a dog, and holy shit, that's awful. But I knew I couldn't scream. I couldn't freak out. I couldn't go, why the fuck is that? I couldn't even get angry. I just had to be like a rock, like nothing. So your dad's break story kind of reminded me of that. But the things I learned from mostly my grandfather and then my uncle and my dad, but most of my grandfather is hard work. My grandpa was, born in 1918, dropped out of school in 3rd grade, Great Depression, helping his family make money, lived a very, very hard life. His high school sweetheart got tuberculosis and died. So he married her like weeks before her death, just to people do that. They'll marry someone they love because they know they're going to die. After that, he gets shipped off to fight the Japanese and the Nazis. He's fighting in the Pacific, almost gets killed there. Very hard life, but was the most joyful, God-fearing, loving man ever. He had every excuse to be a mean son of a bitch. His mother died of the Spanish flu, like before he was, a year old or whatever. And he had a stepmother that hated him and tried to actually kill him. And he had a horrible life when he was a child, but he was just a joyful, joyful, joyful man. Well, the best person I ever knew in my life. And I remember visiting in the summers. This is Colorado where they lived. My parents got divorced when I was 8. So we grew up in San Diego, California. And I would go every summer and stay with my grandparents. And I remember we'd be up goofing off. And like your dad getting up at 5:30 at the Magic Kingdom, my grandpa would get up at 6:30 in the morning and walk 1 block from his house to his tortilla factory and Mexican restaurant and put the ingredients in the industrial mixer, the flour, the lard, the water, the salt, the baking soda to make tortilla dough. And we would get up at like 6:30 to do this, and we would get up with him. But what struck me about him is he was, 70 something now. He had a titanium rod in his leg and a fake knee. He had hands the size of catcher's mitts from all the manual labor, just making his hands huge, like kind of not swollen, but they were just big, gnarly workman hands. And he would, walk like waddle down this alleyway to walk a block. And then he's putting the flour, 100 pounds of dough at a time, lifting the dough. And when you make dough for tortillas, you mix it in the mixer for 20 minutes. Then you throw it in this giant pressurized tank and it goes down to a funnel and squirts out balls of dough onto this rotating table. And that's how you don't have to roll the dough balls by hand. A pressurized machine does it. But the top, the opening, that always looked like the Millennium Falcon to me. The opening was this big circle with a handle on it. You would open it, this pressurized gasket thing on the top to put the dough in, but it was like 7 feet in the air. And he's a little old man with a fake knee climbing halfway up this machine. And I would look at him all scared, like, oh no, we called him Pampy. Pampy's gonna fall off of this thing. And he never would. And I would see someone so buggered up and their body's just destroyed from age, 8 years old to now 75, manual labor their whole life. And he just had a great attitude and worked hard and woke up early. And he didn't need to. He could have just retired, sold. He owned a few houses. He didn't, but he always worked so hard. But what struck me is how physically beat up he was, and he just worked hard anyway. And I remember just seeing that, and like he would wake me and my brother up to go make the dough with him at 6 a.m, and we didn't want to go. We've been playing Nintendo and screwing around and talking, but it would shame me to look at someone so much older and buggered up, and here I am, 12, and in perfect health. And it would get me out of bed because I would feel, well, if he can do it, of course I can. Jeez. And I remember that example of him working so hard. And it was that perfect family structure of man and woman supporting each other. Do you know what my grandma would do when we would go make the dough at 6 a.m? She would get up, she would make eggs and beans and bacon and toast and coffee. We'd go work for an hour, make all the dough. We'd walk back at just a block from the house. We'd come inside, breakfast is ready. We'd all eat a huge breakfast. And then we go back to the tortilla factory and then make all the tortillas and bake them and package them and all that stuff. And that reminds me of that, the American farm culture, where the man would get up, he'd go out, he'd milk the cows, he'd do all the prep work. He'd come in and his wife has now made biscuits and sausage and all this stuff. And then they'd go do the rest of the work. It was the exact same thing where you go out and work and you haven't even eaten yet. And then you come back. So that instilled in me, I mean, I've had a job since I was 12 and I've never stopped. I'm 45 now. So it's still instilled in me to work hard. And another one, his son, my uncle, my grandpa's son, he was really overweight. Poor guy. He passed away in 2008, but he was a big fat guy. Nice guy, super smart guy. He placed in the World Series of Poker in 2006, but he was an attorney. My Uncle Dave, he was a lawyer. He was a really good lawyer. He had like Donald Trump's personality, kind of real bombastic and loud and clever. And like, you know what I mean? He could talk like, he sounded like a Donald Trump kind of. He didn't have the New York accent, but he had that personality. And I remember spending the night at his house one time in the summer visiting Colorado. And it was the same image. Even though Uncle Dave was fat and waddled and he was out of shape, here he comes down the stairs of his big house with his briefcase, his suit, his tie, everything at like 5 a.m. because he has to drive to whatever city to go to court. And I just remembered he's rich, he's out of shape, and here he is trying his best to like, okay, well, I'm a businessman, I'm going to get this done. And in Colorado, what you got to understand about Colorado, everything is an hour or 2 or 3 away. Okay, it's a big, it's 400 miles wide, 300 miles tall, Colorado. And you got Denver, and then you got an hour north for Fort Collins and Greeley. You got like 2 hours south to Pueblo and stuff like that. So he would get up early because, court is in Pueblo today. Court is out in Colorado Springs today. And these things are like an hour, 2, 3 from where you are. Colorado, it's a lot of driving, driving far to go do things. And I remember seeing him come down the stairs that one morning, and it reminded me of my grandfather getting up to make the dough. Like, here he is, he's rich, he doesn't have to do this, but he has the discipline anyway to be an excellent attorney. So seeing that kind of stuff when I was a boy, it really had a lasting impression on me of, I don't care how you feel, get it done, and that's how I model my life after that. And I've been rewarded greatly for it. It doesn't matter. And for those of you out there listening, when something is the right thing to do and you don't want to do it out of laziness, selfishness, or fear or all that, feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the laziness and do it anyway. So that's what I had to share on those. What do you think of that? I mean, we'll wrap it up soon, but what do you think of that kind of? Is that what your dad taught you? Feel anything you want, but do the right thing anyway.
Yeah, you have to, and that's your job, that's your obligation, that's your purpose as a man, is to just do it. You have to shield your family from your feelings. Like you said, when the brakes went out. What if my dad was like, ugh? What if you were in the car when you hit that?
How old were you when the brakes went out?
I was like 8 years old.
What if your dad said, Jericho, what are we gonna do?
Fuck, don't look at me. I'm looking at you. But and what if you were crying and blubbering like your wife and your daughter were, and your son
with the dog, right?
Well, then who's gonna handle this situation? We're all teary-eyed. Somebody's got to take control and get out there and see what the fuck happened to that stupid dog who ran out into the street. And imagine what it would have done to your kids to see you crying like that. Like that guy I told you about whose dad would cry at his feet and beg him to tell his mom to take him back. Imagine what that. I'm supposed to be looking. You're supposed to be my rock. I'm supposed to be able to anchor myself to you and cry in your shoulder and wet your shirt with my tears. Not you to me. That's nature turned upside down. And those poor kids and any kid who has to deal with the dad who doesn't hold his shit together. Now, does that mean you're supposed to be void of emotion? Does that mean your kids are never going to see you shed a tear? No. But if they do, it better be good. Somebody better be dead, or somebody better have just been born for you to see that. You have to hold a lot of shit.
Those are the exceptions. Someone's coming or going.
You got to hold it together, man, because your family is looking to you in situations like that.
They need to
have your shit together. They expect you. Yeah, they I know when I look over at dad, he's going to have a stone cold look on his face, and that's going to give me the confidence and help me calm down because dad's going to take care of it.
Courage is contagious. Courage is contagious.
One of my favorite stories about my dad. We go to Disneyland, and there's an army buddy of his named Mr. Sanders, R.I.P. Mr. Sanders. And he used to cut our hair. He was an army barber.
Oh, wow.
He was a barber in the army, and he would cut our hair. So we go over there again. Him and my dad would shake hands and get right into shit talking. And it was great. It was funny. They're having a great time. There were some times as a kid, you're like, are they about to fight? And then they're like, and they start laughing. Like, oh, shit. So he borrows Mr. Sanders' RV so we could take it down to Disneyland because it's about a 6-hour drive. And so we take in the RV. We go to Disneyland. We have a great time.
Get there at 5:30 in the morning, bright and early.
Up at 5. They're not even letting us in the park yet.
You're here a little early, Mr. Green.
So we went there, and I went and saw Captain EO. So that lets you know what time.
Oh, wow. It's mid-80s.
87, 88. Yeah, something like that.
Right.
So
we're leaving. Captain EO. I loved it.
It was good. It was like a 3D. It was the first time I ever seen 3D. I remember hitting the guy in front of me in the back of the head because a meteor was coming towards me. I was like, oh, shit. And I swiped at it. And I was like, sorry about that. He was understanding. Nice guy. And so we're leaving, and they have the monorail system that takes you all around the park and shit. And so the RV had a big AC unit on top of it, and we're coming up on it. We're closing. We're like 20 yards away, and my mom goes, babe, I don't think you're going to make it. I think we're too tall. And my dad turns to my mom and says famous last words. I know what I'm doing. She folds her arms. She goes, okay. And she's sitting there in the passenger seat. And we go in. We're getting closer and closer. We go into the monorail, and you just hear like the screech of metal on metal. And all of a sudden, there's a huge hole in the roof of the RV. And we look behind us, and you see the AC unit just blam fall on the ground behind us. And we have this big ass hole in the roof, with the insulation and shit hanging down. And my mom just looks at my dad, and if looks could kill, both my parents would have been dead because the way she looked at him and the way he looked at her, like, don't you fucking say a word. So instantly, all of these Disney people, security, everybody shows up. Are you guys okay? Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. The guys, a couple of security guys, pick up the AC unit and put it inside the RV in the middle of the floor. So we're driving 6 hours back to Prudhoe, California. Like you hit the monorail, sir. I don't mean to be Captain Obvious, but I think you didn't make it. My dad would have killed Mickey if he said that. He would have got out and choked Mickey to death.
Looks like you should have been more careful. Yuck.
Dude, my dad, oh my God. So we drive back home, 6 hours. The wind howling
in a convertible RV.
The wind howling because of this giant hole. What? Huh? We couldn't even hear each other. It was so loud, but we didn't need to because.
Well, hold on. You were down in Southern California for a few days, obviously for a trip. Tell me this happened when you were leaving and not when you got there.
No, it was happening when we were leaving. We were leaving the park by Disneyland. Good. Boom, rips a hole in it. The whole way home, it didn't matter whether we could hear each other or not because nobody said a word. I looked at my brother. We were laughing very quietly, but we didn't speak because my dad was hot. Oh my goodness. Not only that, not only the embarrassment of doing that in front of the family, my mom was right. He should have listened to her. And he has to go back to Mr. Sanders with a gaping hole in the roof of his RV and replace the AC unit. So it was bad on multiple levels. But my dad, again, he didn't say shit. He held it in good.
Kept his cool.
I know if we had an egg and we cracked it on his forehead, it would have fucking sizzled, and you could have cooked that egg because he was hot. My dad was pissed.
Oh, I can't even imagine what I'd be feeling if that was me.
Oh,
And then you're
hope
worried,
never have
like,
to.
is the insurance going to give you the runaround? Because, hey, you're not the owner of this RV, and maybe it wasn't covered. And then you're going to get a letter from Mickey Mouse that you owe him for his monorail track now. I hate to inform you, but
our lawyers. Yeah, that sucks, man. It really did for my dad. But I'll never, ever forget that.
But he took it like a man.
He did. Like a man. He was a man's man. If the shit hits the fan and things go bad, my dad was the man you want to be with. Don't even worry about it. Right. Take care of it.
I'll leave it with this. Mark Schlereth, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 1 with the Redskins, 2 with the Denver Broncos. He's got a dad, like a dad. His dad's nickname is Poolside because he's retired and he's always by the pool, the dad. And the dad is a dad we'd all want for a dad, according to Mark's description of how masculine and loving and macho and strong and brave and stoic he is. And he said one thing he instilled in Mark, who went on to be a champion football player, was there's no right way to do the wrong thing in life. You know?
True.
So when the moment comes, and they will come for all of us repeatedly, these moments, feel whatever you're going to feel. But if it tells you to do something wrong, the feeling, do not do it, because the gratification you get for indulging yourself in the moment can have lasting impact that doesn't last a day or a week, or it could last years. It could last the rest of your life when you indulge your emotions. You know, you might get away with it and you indulge yourself and it's a temporary problem. But ask people on death row or serving a life sentence if indulging their passion in the moment was worth it. Ask them, because they will tell you it wasn't. You know what I mean? Ask people that threw away their marriage for a piece of ass one night if that was worth it, you know? So, you know, there's no right way to do the wrong thing. And we know what's right, and we know what's right is controlling ourselves as men. And I thank God for the great men I had in my life, the football coaches, my dad, my uncle, my grandfather, the great men I saw that let me. I think the most important thing a man can do, one of the most important things he could do for a young man, is tell him, you know, you could be more than you ever dreamed. It's going to cost, there's a price, but you can be more than you ever thought you could be if you work on it. So last word to you, and then we'll get out of here.
I'll say what my dad always told me, you know, your word is your bond. If your word ain't shit, you ain't shit. So if you say you're going to do something, you better do it.
All right, guys, hit the like, share it out. Make sure you're subscribed here on Rumble, everywhere. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. All the links in the description. And we will talk to you on the next episode of Daditude.